Welcome to the AEN Stories channel.
I used to measure my life in deliverables. Sprints, milestones, tickets. If the world came with Jira, I would have color-coded it and slept better. My name is Matthew Reed. I'm 39, an engineer who can make a stubborn build behave and a finicky thermostat apologize. I live in the suburbs west of Chicago, the kind of place where street names have trees in them, even if the trees are ornamental and the developer moved on to Florida. I believe two things like they were software axioms. 1. If you keep things updated, they won't break. 2. My wife, Olivia, was my finished product, flawless, elegant, tested against all known edge cases. It turns out neither of those is true, and the bug tracker for a marriage is not a spreadsheet you can export. We met at a friend's rooftop party in the city. The wind off the lake tried to turn everyone into kites. Olivia wore a denim jacket with little gold stars on the shoulders and handed me a plastic cup like a queen bestowing a right. IPA, she said. Because you look like you'll talk about hops if I let you. I didn't, but I could have. We spent the night arguing about whether deep dish pizza counts as pizza or casserole, and I remember thinking if this is my forever debate partner, I can retire my loneliness. We did the normal path, rented, saved, married in a backyard with string lights and a brisket that required an apology from the caterer, bought a house with a mortgage that made my left eye twitch the first month we paid it. I put up smart bulbs everywhere because it felt like progress. She planted lavender and raised beds because she said it looked like calm smells. We made friends with the neighbors, mostly teachers, nurses, people who pick up their own leaves. We learned the garbage schedule and the sound of raccoons walking like bandits across the fence at night. When our son, Henry, was born, the world shrank and expanded all at once. I learned to hold a baby and drink coffee with the same hand. Somewhere after Henry turned 5 and developed opinions about socks, I began to notice hairline fractures in the home release. Olivia got sharp. Irritability that used to be a guest started paying rent. The kitchen became a place where my existence was an interrupt. "Why is this pan here?" she'd say, as if the pan had developed agency. "Why do you breathe like that when you fold laundry?" I tried to patch with jokes. "Low noise mode costs extra," I'd say, and she'd blink like I'd spoken in Python. At first I chalked it up to a season. Work had me on a project with a client who believed in urgency like a religion. Olivia had started a new fitness routine she was proud of and, to be fair, the gym sold misery by the pound and she bought in bulk. But there's a difference between tired and gone. She'd sit on the couch scrolling through Instagram like it owed her money and sigh when I asked if she wanted to watch anything. "Your shows are slow," she'd say, and I'd hear "you are slow." I started staying late at the office because the vending machine there didn't judge me. Then came the neighbor's party. If you've never been to a suburban cul-de-sac party in early summer, imagine a county fair had a baby with a Costco sample day. Coolers, paper plates, lawn games with strict unwritten rules. Kids run in packs, someone's dad pretends to be the grill whisperer, the HOA president lurks like a benevolent warden. I wore my "I turned coffee into code" t-shirt because it had a 60% success rate at getting a laugh. Olivia wore a sundress that made people walk slower, which is a power I respect and feared losing. My boss, Dan, showed up because he lives 2 streets over, something I learned only after I had already learned my boss prefers to pop into meetings like a jump scare. He has the kind of hair that says he uses product and a vocabulary that includes synergy unironically. We did the small talk dance. He ribbed me about my Bears hoodie from last winter, I ribbed him about his socks cap that still has the sticker on it because he doesn't bend brims. It was all stupid and safe until it wasn't. Olivia laughed at something Dan said. Not a normal laugh, the kind that marks territory and invites a tour. She touched his forearm like he'd told a joke about supply chain disruptions that changed her life. They stood by the cooler with the good beer, and she leaned in the way you do when you're trying to hear secrets you already know. I told myself to chill. It was loud. People lean. I walked over to get another burger, because in America we invent errands to stop feelings. As I passed, I heard Olivia say, clear as the day I met her, "Matthew's sweet, but he's kind of predictable." Dan did a sympathetic shrug. "Well, that's engineers," he said. "Reliable." She smiled sideways. Reliable is a nice word for boring. I wanted to disappear, and I also wanted to be a meteor. I didn't either. I flipped a bean burger to look useful and inhaled smoke like it would make me a dragon. After a while, I found Olivia near the fence talking to Megan from down the block about school placement. I said quietly, "You seemed very chatty with Dan." She shrugged. "He's personable. You could learn from him." The night wrapped up in fireworks and fruit salad. On the walk home, Olivia's wedges clicked against the sidewalk like a metronome to my humiliation. "You know," she said, "I can't do this if it's just this." "You're boring, Matthew. I don't want to live with a loser." She said it flat, not cruel. Cruel would have meant she cared. Words like that don't stab, they drain. I slept in my car that night. Slept is generous. I closed my eyes in the driver's seat and listened to a herd of cicadas try to soundtrack my life. At 2 a.m. a patrol car cruised past slow, and I did the awkward wave of a man who doesn't want to be a headline. I dozed until dawn turned the windshield into a screensaver. Henry found me in the morning because kids are detectives when love is involved. He padded outside in dinosaur pajamas and tapped on the window like I was a frog he wanted to show his friends. I rolled it down. "Hey, buddy." He looked at me for a long second like I was a puzzle he could solve. "Daddy," he said, "don't be sad." He said it with the confidence of a magician revealing a coin. I have been told many things in life by people with deep voices and deep pockets. That sentence ranks above most of them. I got out of the car and hugged him and smelled shampoo that promised ocean breeze but delivered tolerable. Something in me clicked, not like a snap, more like a gear finding its tooth. I can take being insulted by a woman who once told me my laugh was her favorite playlist. I cannot take my son learning that you just give up. Some of us have ancestors who immigrated with steamer trunks and dreams. Mine immigrated from "I'd rather fix it than cry." Both are valid. Mine just fits my face better. I went to work, showered in the locker room like the company might award me a merit badge, and knocked on Samir's cubicle wall. Samir is the friend you don't deserve but get if you buy lunch for the right person the first week of a job. He's in IT, which is like being a wizard but with compliance documents. He wears t-shirts that say things like "there is no cloud, it's just someone else's computer," and he can make a printer behave by whispering threats in Bash. We sat in a conference room whose only personality was a plant that had given up around 2019. I told him what I suspected, what I observed, what I overheard. I did not embellish because I've seen embellished stories collapse under their own marketing. "I don't want revenge," I said. "I want the truth and I want to follow the rules getting it." Samir nodded slowly. "Two lanes," he said. "Personal and corporate. Personal, what you can access legally that is yours, shared devices, shared accounts, backups you technically own. Corporate, what intersects with company assets, bosses dating subordinates, misuse of systems, policy violations. We don't hack. We don't creep. We document. We timestamp. We don't break laws because that way lies unemployment for both of us." "Understood," I said. "I just want to stop feeling crazy." We started with the simple and legal. The home iPad was on our family Apple ID. I never thought much about it because the iPad was mostly a Netflix/Bluey machine until Henry discovered Roblox. The device stored shared messages for a while in the bowels of its backups like a squirrel with gossip nuts. Samir showed me how to extract a backup into a readable format. It was so boringly easy I wanted to write a thank you note to whoever invented friction, because clearly there isn't enough. I plugged the iPad into my laptop that night in the guest room. Olivia was at a networking event. She came home smelling like expensive lemon and someone else's cologne, which I filed under evidence I cannot use. The backup took an hour. While it churned, I watched Henry sleep, his hands in little fists like he was ready to bargain with dreams. The program spat out a tidy folder. Inside, messages, photos, calendar invites. Not everything, this isn't a movie, but enough. The next morning, coffee in hand, Samira and I sat in that conference room again and opened files. Text threads between Olivia and a contact saved as D, which could be a lot of people, except the messages referenced Sprint reviews, which narrowed the universe. They were heart emojis but also times and places that match Dan's schedule because Dan's schedule is half of my schedule. Photos from the neighbor's party where the crop was curated. Calendar events titled things like strategy session, Dan at a time when Dan and I were supposed to be in different rooms, except my meeting had mysteriously moved. Samir pointed to the timestamps. "You see the overlap?" he said, zooming in like a jeweler. She texts him 3 minutes after the meeting invite changes. He replies from his work Mac, "I can tell by the metadata string in the attachment header. That's a company device." "I don't want their sexts," I said, the word feeling weird in my mouth. "I want what proves this bled into work." "We have it," he said. "There's an HR policy, leaders cannot engage in relationships with direct reports or employees whose work they assess. You're not Dan's direct report, but he signs off on your team's promotions and reviews. There's also a policy about use of company resources. He's using his company email to coordinate personal meetings. Add calendar manipulation to create overlap, and we have a compliance problem, not just a sad husband problem." I felt a sensation I can only describe as the difference between drowning and treading water in a pool with a good lifeguard. "Okay," I said. We take this to HR?" "Not like you're trying to blow up a person," Samir said. "Like you're trying to protect the company and yourself. We redact what's private and irrelevant. We include only what intersects with policy. We organize, we summarize, we don't editorialize." He smiled. "We make it an engineer's love language, documentation." That night, Olivia leaned against the kitchen island and watched me make spaghetti like it was a test I hadn't studied for. "Are we okay?" I said, "because sometimes you ask a question you already wrote the answer to." She rolled her eyes. "You're so dramatic." She picked up her phone and typed, smiled, typed some more. "You should talk to Dan," she said. "He understands ambition." "Does he understand boundaries?" I asked. She laughed, like Flint. "Matthew, don't be quaint. Dan protects his people." "Good," I said softly. "Let's involve them." She cocked her head. "What?" "Nothing," I said. "Spaghetti's done." I didn't sleep in the car that night. I slept in Henry's room on the floor, a yoga mat between me and all the choices I'd made. In the morning he rolled off his bed and onto my stomach like a sack of potatoes with questions. "Why are you here?" he asked. "Because your floor is special," I said. "Because I want to guard your dreams." He nodded, satisfied. Kids accept answers on credit. At work, Samir and I assembled a packet. Index. Timeline. Exhibits. We included screenshots with headers, we included calendar changes with audit logs, we included the policy PDF with the relevant lines highlighted. We removed every message that was only about feelings because HR cannot adjudicate heartbreak, they can only adjudicate risk. We printed 2 copies and made a digital folder with restricted access because we wanted to look like the opposite of chaos. I asked for a confidential meeting with HR and legal. "It's sensitive," I said in the email. "It involves potential violations by a senior manager that intersect with my personal life. I'm not seeking damages. I'm seeking protection and policy enforcement." Those are magic words. The invite came back with sooner than I thought possible as a timestamp. The room was soft gray, with chairs that tried to be neutral and a tissue box like a pre-apology. HR, Janine, who reminds me of a favorite aunt, sat with a notebook and a legal pad like she was ready to choose her own adventure. Legal, Mr. Bauer, whose first name I always forget because he speaks in complete clauses, sat with a pen that seemed heavier than physics would allow. I took a breath that hurt. "Thank you for seeing me," I said. "I have something to show you that I wish I didn't. I'm not perfect in my personal life. I'm not asking you to fix that. I need you to see where my boss's choices might be violating policy and creating an unsafe environment for my career." We walked through it. I did not look at Janine when we got to the calendar invites that shifted like tiny tectonic plates under my week. I did not look at Mr. Bauer when I showed the photo metadata that said, in basically legalese, that a company laptop had been used for something that was not in the laptop's job description. They asked good, sober questions. "Are you concerned about retaliation?" "Yes." Have there been performance review changes tied to these dates? I showed them the part where my mid-year was delayed after a cancelled meeting that corresponded with a suspiciously named coffee on a Saturday. "We will take it from here, Mr. Bauer said finally, in a tone that made me feel both protected and like I'd triggered a machine I couldn't stop. "Do not discuss this outside of this room, except with your own counsel if you engage one." Samir, he turned to my friend, "Thank you for your clarity and restraint." Samir nodded. "We're not cowboys," he said. "We're librarians." I walked out of the room feeling like a person who had finally clicked submit on a form that had been open too long. I bought Samir lunch from the taqueria down the street, the one that refuses to name its salsas and just says be careful. He held up a taco. "To boring documentation," he said. "To boring documentation," I echoed, and felt a small laugh open up some space in my chest. Olivia confronted me 2 nights later, because the universe loves symmetrical cruelty. "Did you go to HR?" she asked, voice low, eyes sharp. "Did you tell them lies?" She was more angry than surprised, which told me she understood the stakes. "I told them policy," I said. "And facts. No lies necessary." "You think Dan won't protect me?" she said, and there it was, clean and proud. "He's not going to let your little tantrum ruin his career." "This isn't a tantrum," I said. "This is a man refusing to be small so someone else can be sloppy." She smiled, which hurts more than a scream. "You're a boy playing with fire, Matthew. You'll get burned. And when you do, I don't have aloe." "Good line," I said. "Save it for your group chat." The investigation moved quicker than the internet thinks companies move. There are advantages to documentation and a policy manual written by people who have seen things. Dan was placed on administrative leave pending review, which is HR for don't touch anything, especially other humans. My team had a temporary reporting line to a director who says please and means it. There is a quiet in the office when a senior person disappears. Conversations get narrow, as if the corridors might be wired. People who like Dan switch from he's a visionary to he had blind spots with a speed that makes you doubt we ever really know anyone at work beyond their calendar. I kept my head down and my code clean. I answered Henry's questions about where mommy was with she's taking some time, which is vague enough to be honest. In the neighborhood, news travels at a speed the internet envies. The mom's Facebook group, which I am not on but which radiates power like a distant star, started pulsing. I know because Megan, who is a kindness that feels like a warm driveway in winter, texted Olivia to check in and got a response that could sand furniture. Then Megan texted me to check in and got a thanks with too many dots, which in my language means I am grateful but can't talk or I'll cry. One afternoon, Henry's school sent home a flyer about family night, which I had thought was just a slot to sell more popsicles and raffle things we would never use. Olivia put it on the counter and wrote I'll take him in a note that felt like a dare. "We can both go," I said. "Henry would like that." She shrugged. "Fine." We went. Dan did not. The principal, who has the energy of a gentle tornado, gave me a half nod that said adult things. A week later, HR scheduled a meeting with me. I took the elevator with the same feeling I get when I hand my phone to a toddler. Janine and Mr. Bauer sat like before, except this time the tissue box was off to the side, as if it were shy. We substantiated the policy violations, Janine said, efficient but not unkind. There were multiple instances of inappropriate conduct by your manager with an employee, including use of company resources and interference in scheduling and performance review processes that created a conflict of interest. The company has terminated his employment effective today. The words walked around the room politely until they sat in my chair with me. I exhaled. "Thank you," I said, because what else do you say when the universe decides to agree with you for a minute? "We also want to talk about you, Mr. Bauer said, flipping to a new page. "Your work during this period has been exemplary. Your peers and the interim director noted your leadership. We'd like to expand your responsibilities." He used the word promotion like a door opening. He used the word raise like a life raft. He used the word support in a way that made me believe it for 5 minutes, which is rare for corporate nouns. I walked back to my desk with the sort of detached flow you get after dental work. Samir stood up when he saw my face. "Well?" he said. "Dan's out," I said. "And I'm up." He grinned like a man who saw a plan through and didn't need to monologue. "Built, not broken," he said. "What?" "Something I saw on a Yeti sticker once," he shrugged. "Feels right." Olivia did not handle the shift with the grace I dreamed of back when I was young enough to dream of grace. She did not apologize. She did not set her jaw and promise to co-parent with maturity. She mostly vanished into the social fabric like a red wine stain someone pretends is a pattern. The moms at the park got quiet when she approached. The HOA president found reasons to email me instead of her. At Henry's soccer game, the coach, who teaches 5th grade and knows most of the town's secrets by accident, gave me the kind of clap on the shoulder that says I see you going through it and I can't say anything official but keep showing up. We separated without theater. She took the guest room, I took the primary, then we swapped when it made sense. We built a calendar for Henry with stickers instead of directions. We tried to schedule the fall like two executives who don't like each other but understand the budget. Olivia told a version of the story where she had been lonely for a long time and I had not noticed. That might be true. I told a version where I had been trying and she had been elsewhere. That is also true. Truth is parallel sometimes. On a cold Saturday in October, after the promotion settled into my bones and the new responsibilities began to feel like tasks instead of proof, I took Henry to a car wash because he loves the neon soap like it's a music video. He sat in the front seat clutching a coupon like a man about to make a deal. As the brushes swallowed us and the world turned into a pink waterfall, he said, "Daddy, are we okay?" I said, "We're building something." He nodded solemnly. "Like Legos, but for real life." "Exactly," I said. "Exactly like that." We moved a few months later. Not far, just enough that the grocery store felt like a new level in a game. The old house, our first, went to a young couple who staged it with fresh towels and a bowl of green apples like HGTV taught them. I wished them arguments they would survive and jokes that could rebuild. The new place has a bigger backyard and a garage that doesn't smell like sadness. On the day we closed, Henry helped me carry a box labeled kitchen, fragile/why are there so many mugs? He set it down, wiped his hands on his shorts, and said, "This is a good house." I believed him. Before we pulled out of the old driveway one last time, I stuck a decal on the windshield that I'd ordered at 1 a.m. When bravery feels like shopping. It's simple white block letters, built, not broken. It's for me, not for traffic. When the sun hits it at a certain angle, it looks like a promise you can read even in the rearview mirror. Olivia came by the new place a week later to drop off Henry after a dentist appointment. She stood in the foyer and looked around like a realtor in a hurry. "Nice," she said. "It's you." "Thanks," I said. We stood in the polite silence of two people who once knew how to be noisy together. She looked at the decal through the glass and smirked. "Subtle." "I'm learning," I said. She nodded toward Henry, who was inspecting the pantry for the presence of pretzels. "He's okay," she said, a little wonder in her voice. "He's resilient," I said. "He gets it from his mother," I added, "because I am trying to be a better man than the one who sleeps in cars and counts insults for sport." She didn't argue. She kissed Henry's head and left. The door closed with a sound I'm starting to hear as a comma instead of a period. Work became less about surviving meetings and more about shaping things. The promotion came with real authority, which is different from extra responsibility with a nicer title. I started mentoring the new grads who think code review is a personal attack. I found that I could speak in a meeting without waiting to be called on internally by an imaginary teacher. Janine from HR asked me to help rewrite the relationships policy into English people could understand without a translator. I wrote the sentence, "We're not against love, we're against power using love as a lever," and it felt like being useful. On Saturdays, Henry and I build a birdhouse or a robot or a Lego city that violates zoning laws. Sometimes we go into the city, ride the L because it makes him feel like a conductor, and split a hot dog because I refuse to let him put ketchup on it until he's 10 and makes his own choices. We laugh more now, and when I catch myself waiting for the other shoe to drop, I remind myself that I'm wearing sneakers. Do I miss Olivia? Sometimes, in the way you miss a version of yourself you once believed in. The woman who rolled her eyes at deep dish casserole jokes and thought my hands were a good place to put her bad day, that woman was real for a while. The woman who told me I was boring like she was reading a product review, that woman is also real. People contain multitudes. Some of those multitudes don't land. If you're expecting a grand finale where I give a speech at a block party and everyone claps, I don't have that for you. My life's victories now are precise and local. Henry ties his shoes while I drink coffee made by a machine I finally clean properly. My code passes tests on the first try because I stopped rushing to please people who were never going to be pleased. The car starts, the windshield tells me I'm built, not broken, and the road to work is the same road home. There's a guy at my new gym who grunts like an injured buffalo and drops weights in a way that makes the whole room negotiate with flooring. He wears a shirt that says pain is just weakness leaving the body, which I've always thought was both inaccurate and rude. Pain is data. Sometimes it's useful. Sometimes it's noise. In my house, we try to use it like we use logs: you read it, you fix what you can, you archive the rest. Then you take your kid to soccer and cheer like the game is the only thing that matters, because for an hour, it is. Here's what I know now, written not in code but in the kind of pen that stains your fingers for a day. Keep your documentation. Keep your dignity. When something cracks, don't throw it away, see if you can rebuild it into something with character. Talk to HR like they are people. Talk to your friends in IT like they are priests. Don't sleep in your car unless you have to, but if you do, keep a hoodie and a backup charger in the glove compartment. Believe your kid when he tells you not to be sad. He doesn't mean don't feel. He means don't stop. And when someone calls you boring, remember, bridges are boring until you need to cross one. Engines are boring until the plane stays up. Boring is fine. Boring gets Henry to school and me to a porch at night where the crickets hold a meeting and I chair it with a lemonade. On the first night in the new house, after the boxes were stacked like brown Tetris, I stood in the driveway looking at the car. The sticker caught the streetlight and glowed. Built, not broken, I said out loud, because saying things out loud sometimes makes them truer. Inside, Henry called, "Dad? Where's my astronaut blanket?" I went in and found it at the bottom of a box labeled bathroom. Why? We laughed. We made a fort out of packing paper and hope. We slept like people who had done as much as they could and would do the rest tomorrow. I still measure my life in deliverables, but they look different now. One bedtime story. One email I don't second guess. One fence picket replaced instead of wishing the whole fence would volunteer. I have fewer axioms, more questions. It's better that way. Updates don't prevent breakage. They help you recover. And I guess that's the story. I believed Olivia was my ideal, she turned out to be a version. She got cold, I slept in a Honda. Henry said a sentence that upgraded my spine. A friend with admin privileges taught me how to collect truth without getting arrested. HR did their job. My boss lost his. Olivia lost her community applause and, if I'm honest, some of my grief. I got a promotion, a house that feels like a test I'm ready for, and a piece of vinyl on the windshield that reminds me I'm a project worth shipping. When I pull out of the driveway in the morning, the sticker is the last thing I see before the world. That feels right. The road is not short. It is not smooth. But I helped build the car I'm driving, and for the first time in a long time, I like the map. Thank you for listening my story. If you want more raw, real, and gripping stories like this one, subscribe to the AEN Stories channel. Your support keeps these stories alive.